super excited to be here.
Awesome.
Hanging out with you. Advantage Heating in Salem, Oregon. We've actually, this little tiny town of Salem, Oregon, we won the #1 Daikin Dealer Award that they have for North America.
Daikin. So what is Daikin?
Daikin is the largest manufacturer in the world for heating and air conditioning equipment.
Okay.
You could take all the other ones that I'm not going to name them, but you could take the big three that you can think of, put them together, and they're not even as big as Daikin. If you put them all together. So that's a huge thing. And really the shout out for me is thanking Salem, Kaiser, and surrounding areas for giving us that opportunity, because that's a huge award, and we didn't even know that we had won it. It was pretty exciting.
You didn't even go.
I couldn't even go. I couldn't even go and get that award. We sent Craig, who's the general manager at Advantage Heating, but the growth and the support that we've had from Salem Kaiser has just been amazing.
Well, and then one of the categories that award was weighted on is for company culture. Daikin is a super employee-centric company, and that's one of the reasons why we aligned with them really well. And that phrase has kind of become really cliche, but they really do care about their people and their personal well-being and all of that, and that's such a huge part for us too. And so it was really cool to see that was one of the categories that they weighted it on. I mean, you're talking, I don't know, 1,600 contractors between the U.S. and Canada.
Well, that was just the top contractors, 1,600 top contractors.
Okay. So there was
way
thousands.
There's
more.
thousands.
Yeah.
There's
so,
thousands.
And so for us to get that, and one of the 4 categories being company culture was really cool, because, you know, as much as we want to thank Salem for the support and everything like that, ultimately, when I look at the company, our biggest secret to success is the fact that we don't have 70 some odd employees who are just there to come in and do a job, punch the clock, and leave. I mean, everybody is on board to help in any way that they can. Like, so a good example actually is, so we had somebody who needed something done like immediately. So we're looking to see if we get volunteers for Saturday. This was just yesterday. So on Thursday, we need people to try and work Saturday. Amy, our dispatcher, is calling around to everybody, coming up short. People have a lot of plans right now. It's summertime. So, she's super stressed. I made a couple phone calls. We got someone to come in, fill in, cover her, which, you know, a lot of that just stems from, oh shoot, like Amy's stressed. Let's see if we can help out. Yep. And then due to the stress, Randy, our install manager, gathered everybody who was actually in the office or the shop and not out in the field at that time, which is probably 20 some odd of us. Brought her into her office. Everyone gave her a round of applause, and she's, you know, tearing up a little bit and stuff like that. And that's just a day-to-day occurrence. And so the number of people that actually care about each other, that care about our customers, that are all looking to jump in and help, share ideas, make things better. I mean, that's literally everybody. And I don't know where else you go that you have 70 some odd people that are all working towards that same vision and goal, and all care about each other, all want to lift each other up. That's really, when I look at it, that's probably the biggest reason why we've become so successful, is from 15 to 20 people through 70, somehow we've maintained that atmosphere. And I think that's...
Yeah. Well, if you look at our billboards and stuff, it says #LoveFirst. And the idea is that our customers are very important, but our internal customers are more important, because we feel that if we treat them in a correct manner, that they're going to go out and they're going to actually treat the homeowner in the same way that they're treated. We've had so many instances where the homeowner actually went through a really bad time. One of the stories was that our installer was on the job, and he just felt like the homeowner was just angry at him, and she just kept coming at him with stuff. And she said, "Ma'am, did I do something wrong? Did we do something that we're not, that you don't, did we not meet up with our expectations, with your expectations?" And she said, "No, my husband just passed away." And she started crying, and he held her, just gave her a hug for like 5-10 minutes while she cried. But that's the kind of, this kind of love that we want to put out there.
Yeah.
you know? And,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at where we've come from and where we are today. You know, you were mentioning out there, you know, number of trucks on the road and stuff like that. We was probably, I don't know, 40 some trucks on the road at this point, and people are seeing us everywhere. And the entire goal that I had when I decided to take this seriously and wanted to dive into the marketing, help build an actual brand, was when somebody sees a van, when somebody sees a logo, that I want them to feel something just like you would if you see somebody that you know. You know, you see somebody's picture that you know really well, and know intimately, you have an instant gut feeling for them. And that was the whole goal setting out to build Advantage Eating as a brand, was to generate and create a feeling within people when they see us. And the only way to do that is to create feelings amongst your people and have them create feelings amongst those people. And then, use social media and marketing and stuff like that to show it. But if you don't have that actually happening, you have nothing to show anyway.
Right.
And
well, Brandon was he was going through his own things in life, and we were in where were we at? Nevada. We were in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And we were just sitting there, and I said, "What would you think about coming to work at Advantage?"
I had just gotten divorced, just moved from
Yeah.
Portland to Salem, had tiny bit of money to get me by for a little while. I was doing some online affiliate marketing stuff to make some extra cash, just selling other people's products and courses and stuff, and doing some marketing that way. And really had zero clue what I was planning to do. This was like 7 years
a while
ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, "What does that look like?" And I said, "I really don't know, but let's take a look at it." And we explored it and really found out. I mean, Brandon became an amazing. He became number one on our sales team. I mean, he just was amazing and connecting with the customers. And I looked at him. I said, before he even started, I said, when you go out and you're doing sales, we're not doing sales. What we're doing is we're making friends. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that was the first thing that I said. We're making friends. And then he took that beyond, and now we talk about connection and making sure that we have a connection with the customer, because we're not there to push anything on anybody. We're just there to serve them. That's our whole focus. How can we serve you today? How can we get what you want? And you know what? If we can't provide that and someone else can, we encourage them to go with that other company. I mean, it's not all about us. It's about them. And I believe that the customer service aspect of that, we're trying to change the industry, because the industry has always been, oh no, this is what you need. We're the experts. We're coming in. We're going to tell you what you have to have. We're trying to change that.
Yeah.
And I believe that there is a huge shift in the market. And I've had some of my suppliers come to us and say, "You do realize what's going on?" I said, "No, what do you mean?" He said, "You guys are changing this industry. And if we can change the contractor world, and we can start changing that from, they're always late, they didn't show up, they didn't do what they said they were going to do. I mean, it was okay. Yeah, I still have air conditioning, but it wasn't anything like what we were told it was going to be."
Right.
We need to change that, because that's just not right.
Yeah.
And guess what? If we do that, we make mistakes and we walk in and that customer's not happy, we do whatever it takes to make sure that we gave them what they were promised.
Yeah.
We have a job today that there was a misunderstanding, and just this morning, and I got involved, and I said, "No, guys, we have to do this. There was a misunderstanding. We're going to take care of it, and we're going to make sure." And part of it was that she wasn't going to have hot water over the weekend. I said, "You can't do that, so we're going to make sure that she is well taken care of." And but that's what we do. And when I started the company, I really had a thought process of, I want a customer for life. So if you do business with me, with us, not me, because I'm not even out there anymore. So I say me, but it's not me anymore. It used to be me, and then that was it. That was I did the install, and there were people who will still call up and say, "Hey, is Dan going to come out and install this for me? Or is Dan going to be the one out here?" And it's like,
probably not.
Yeah, he doesn't do that anymore. And I've gotten on the phone. I've said, "You don't even want me anymore. I don't even, these guys, they know way more than I do." So,
when did you start, to give some context there?
I started in 1992.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the brief story that we've thrown out there, and Brandon's heard it a million times, but $350 in my bank account, and I had a red S10 pickup, 1984, and I was proud of it. It was a four-wheel drive, my first four-wheel drive truck. And I had a lot of ambition, and I just thought, I can do this. And I have learned a lot.
So it wasn't just easy, huh? It wasn't just a straight line from A to B.
No, I actually, I had lined up some, if I needed it, just if I needed it, some side jobs, working for other people and getting paid by the hour, and found out I was probably working about 40 to 45 hours a week for other people so that I could support 3 kids and a whole family, and it was rough. And sometimes I say, I don't know what happened. I think my brain left my head when I decided to start this company because it was not at all what I had envisioned.
Yeah.
But today it is.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool. I've been through a lot of times where I was trying to make payroll, and I had no money in the bank at all. And I sold my Camaro the night before, and I made payroll, got cash in my hand, and I took less than I wanted for it. And it was like my dream car, the 1968 Camaro that I was building, and it was getting close to done. And you know what? I had to sell it. I had a rifle that was handed down by my great grandfather, and I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, I'm in a spot, man. I won't sell this if you're going to be upset with me." And it was a $7,000 rifle, and I sold it so I could make payroll. There was another situation where the next day was payroll, and we did it in-house, which was so I could make sure the checks didn't go out too soon.
Right.
With our payroll processing company, what we have to do right now is we have to front the money, and so
Gotcha.
they get the money 3 or 4 days before before it actually the checks hit. But then we did it in house, and I was at someone's house, and I was talking to them. It's 6 o'clock at night. Next day's payroll, and they said, "I think we should move forward on this." I said, "Great! It's a $30,000 job." My payroll was like at that time 15, but I had zero money in my bank account to make payroll. And they said, "Do you require anything down?" Well, I'm thinking in my head, I need something. This is getting really scary. But my policy had always been, no, I want you to be satisfied with the work when we're done. I said, a lot of people will give us half down, or some people will pay for the whole thing, but this is $30,000. I want you to be comfortable with what you're going to do. They wrote me a check for $30,000. You know what I was doing the next day? 9 a.m. I'm standing at the bank, knocking on the door. Let me
Take
in.
my money.
Yeah. And that happened over and over and over again. So much so that my bookkeeper at that time, he looks at me and he said, he did more than just bookkeeping, but that was one of his jobs, was making sure that everything was entered in correctly. And he said, "I have no clue how you do this. How do you do it?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You have nothing in the bank, and we have all these bills to pay and payroll, and it magically appears in the bank account." It's like, yeah, man, you got me. It just is the way it is, and things like that would happen all the time.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about sleepless nights and the stress level, and it's
Well, and not to
lot of
mention
them.
having the family too, so when I was a kid and that stuff was happening, I remember us as a family going through just as many hard times, because if the company has no money, you have no money.
right.
So, I look back now and see my own foolishness a lot. And
Dad loves to hear that. Finally.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, because on one hand, he's trying to teach me to understand entrepreneurship and business, right? So, like, by 8 or 9, I had, like, a candy machine in a barber shop, and then every month we'd go get the quarters and buy more candy, and I'm learning about profit and product and all that at a young age. So on one hand, I'm learning all this stuff that is now serving me today, while on the other hand, I'm looking at, you know, my friends at school, or people at church and stuff like that, and I'm just like, why are we so broke? Like, why are we so poor? You know, like, by probably 10 years old, I'm working for $5 an hour or $2 an hour in the shop. He took a lot of advantage of my child labor.
But is that where the name came from? Advantage?
Yeah, exactly. By 14 or 15, I was up to $5 an hour. I remember going to him and being like, "You don't even pay me minimum wage. Minimum wage is $6.95. I have friends now who can go get real jobs." But you know, on one hand, I'm like, okay, so you know, my friend just had his parents help him buy a car. You got to buy a car. Oh, you want to get just my learner's permit at 15. Oh, you got to pay me a year in advance for your insurance. So I'm working all summer just so I can get my permit at the end of the summer. You know, you want clothes. Oh, you want a cell phone. Literally anything. It was like, you got to pay for yourself. And I know on one hand, it's learning responsibility. And on the other hand, a lot of times it was, there's just no money. So if you can't pay your insurance bill that month, we're not going to be able to afford to have you. And I remember a lot of times being like, "Dad, why the hell aren't you just going and getting a job? Like, you could be making $20, $30, $40 an hour if you would just go back to, you know, working for Roth or whoever you had been working for at the time, instead of going through all of this." I'm looking at my friends who their life seems much easier and more simple, and we're going through all these challenges off and on. And sometimes times we're good, but then there'd be equally as many, if not more so, times that there was just literally nothing there. And so I remember like being so frustrated with him at times and not understanding, like, why are you going through this? Why are we choosing to live this way? You know, and plus I was the oldest child. So, you know, by the time I was in college, the business is starting to get on its feet and all of that. And I think things were getting a little bit easier and before 2008 and all of that. But when I was younger, I remember seeing a lot of that. Now I look back and I feel like I get it. It's like, oh man, like you were sacrificing everything to build your dream while trying to provide for a family. Now that I have my own family, I get it a lot more. But yeah, I remember during those times, like just having a totally different perspective as a kid. It was just...
And I could have made a lot of money. I could have made a lot more money, and it wouldn't have been an issue, and I wouldn't have had to work on Saturday and Sunday. But every Saturday, we worked every Saturday, and whether it was cutting up all of the... Because we'd get the equipment in, and then we'd have to cut it all up so that we could take it down to the copper and recycle, and a lot of times that's how I made my house payment, was through the recycling money. And copper went up, woohoo, this is good. Not good for buying stuff, but this is good.
Right.
And then... But that we worked pretty much every Saturday, and then every Sunday morning, I was usually, before anybody got up, I was usually doing books or doing something until it was time to go to church or whatever we were going to do that Sunday. Yeah. And if I needed to, it was that was later when I didn't have to work for anybody. But there was a time when I started work. I started working for someone on a Friday and got through that day, and a friend called me and said, you know, we've got a new baby and our furnace is down. So I went over and I fixed their stuff, and there was some stuff I could do. I had all kinds of stuff that I could do. And so I just kept going. And 40 hours later, it was 42 hours, and I came home and I said, I think I need to sleep for a while. But it was a 42-hour day, and I pulled a couple of those.
Yeah. So this logo, when you were kind of talking about, you know, how you felt about your dad and how it is now, I had my daughter draw this logo, and for a couple different reasons. One, I didn't want a professional logo because of what I'm trying to make this podcast into. All of our stories are a bit messy, right? And it kind of looks like a kid drew it because a kid drew it. And also, in the last, 16 months, I've started 3 different businesses, and she kind of thinks I'm crazy. She tells me that what does she say? She's like, you don't live in the real world or something. Like she would probably prefer me just to go get
Yeah.
just to go work for somebody. It would probably make her feel safer with all this stuff. But what I'm looking forward to is down the road, as this thing becomes a thing, now she's tied to the brand, the logo, and eventually, hopefully,
Yeah.
she looks back and goes, "Oh, this kind of, I get it now, and I'm seeing what this entrepreneurship means." All this equipment, I sold my car 2 months ago just to have cash so I could just buy everything immediately. That's how this came about.
Yeah.
So I love those kind of stories of how, people do what they do and what you're willing to do to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think that part's important, that people understand, like, what did you sacrifice? And right now you're just talking about financial sacrifice, but I know we spoke out there that there was more sacrifices than just finances to do all this. And
Yeah, I sacrificed a lot of time and a lot of time with my kids, and it came to a point where my wife said, I'm done. There was more to the story than that, and there's always two sides to a story, and there were some other issues going on, but a lot of what she blamed her wanting to leave was on the company. And we won't go into any more detail than that. So there were sacrifices there. And the interesting thing for me, when that happened and that division happened, that's when I had to take a real look at my life. And I really did. And I said, what's important? Yeah, my dream, my vision, that is important. But what's important for me, and what's really important, are the 3 kids I got right here, my family. That's the most important thing. I actually did a pivot at that moment, and I said, okay, we are going to change, and family's going to become number one. Yeah, I got to work. Yes, I have to make a living, and yes, we have to have food on the table. We have to have a place to live. We have to have all those things. But that was a very monumental moment, I believe, in my children's life, because I looked at it and I said, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm providing, I am working hard, and I know someday I'm going to have time to spend with my kids. There was a switch that flipped and said, no, today is the day that I'm going to spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
Today is the day that we're going to make that shift. And I learned a lot about how to communicate that I didn't even know, things that make younger kids feel important, just stupid, simple things like get down on your knees, make sure you're at their level, because all of a sudden they know that you're paying attention to them. And I learned little things like that, and I began to do those things. And I believe, and as hard as that was, and when that happened, I basically took a year off because I was that devastated. I mean, it was a devastating thing for me. And I pretty much took a whole year off. I was still in the business. I had 1 employee, so I still had to be active. But as far as what I was doing before, with the drive that I had and the constant push to get the business going, I just took the year and focused more on what's important, what is important. And then not too long after that, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And so we walked through that too. But being able to remove the business and say, this family, people are more important than the company. That was a really good, I don't even know how to put it, but that was really good for me. I mean, that was a good life change. A really good life change. I don't know what would have happened had I not had that life change, because I had so much drive and so much ambition, so much push, that I probably would have been one of those guys where kids didn't talk to me. Because I was so absent. I probably would have been. I mean, I can see that where Dad, where were you? You
Yeah.
know, cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon,
Right.
right?
Right.
You know, when we gonna get together, Dad? I
Right.
don't know when.
Right.
You know, I believe that would have happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd have been at the top, at the pinnacle of my life, looking around and going, where the hell is everybody? Where are the people that are important?
Right.
Where are the people that matter in life? I mentioned my dad going through cancer, and the company was in a better spot at that moment. At that time, that was a few years later, 2002. So he looked at me. He said, I was helping him on a project at his house, and he said, "Why are you here?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You need to be running your company. You need to be doing. You need to be out there working. I know where your company's at. I know how difficult. I know what's going on." And I said, "Dad, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm right here beside you, helping you build this deck. Right now, this is where I'm supposed to be, and I will be here whenever I can." And I never regretted it. I never regretted taking that time, because it wasn't too many years later that he passed away. And had I not taken that time, and had I still had that mindset that I had before, I wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
I would have just said, okay, well, I'm going to get this stuff done, and then I'm going to go see my dad, or I'm going to get this stuff done, and then I'll play with the kids. But I got to get this stuff done first, and guess what? Stuff never gets done, because the minute you get something done, there's something else that's piled on top.
Yeah.
And I just put out a well, what was that on Facebook that you just threw out on Facebook?
Your video?
My video. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
I want to say podcast, because
Yeah.
we're on a podcast.
Yep.
I just put out a really short video about enjoying the journey,
Yeah. I watched it.
because my whole life prior to that, my whole life was not enjoying the journey. It was about the destination.
Yep.
You know what's interesting about that though, that I've never really thought of before. I've also never heard you tell that story before about Grandpa. But when I look at like within Advantage and with the employees, you can actually see a lot of that in like the priority level that other people's families take within the company. You know, we've had people who are suffering an illness, and we're doing our best to take care of them in the meantime, or find a new position for them where they can actually work, or last minute, hey, you know, my wife's taking my daughter to the hospital. Well, then why are you here?
Right.
This doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense for you. Last minute, you know, family trips or whatever it is, like you can definitely see where that has actually permeated through like Advantage heating. And it's interesting because I think it'd be really easy for somebody who's just looking at the numbers and feeling like, how much are we giving away? How much time are we letting people take? How often are we supporting people and all of that? But outside of like the heart behind it all, it's so ridiculously practical too, because we don't have anybody leave. The turnover that I don't remember if anybody's even left this year so far, and with that many people, odds are you're going to have turnover. In our industry, you see a pretty fair amount of turnover too, but we just don't have anybody leave, and I think it's because there's just kind of this unspoken rule that it's not even unspoken, we actually do say it, but like your family really will come first.
Absolutely.
And so if there's something that you need, or your family needs, you know, it's not uncommon for us to just see somebody and be like, are you sure you want to be here today? Like, we'll cover everything. Like, you clearly are not doing well. No, I just had this happen last night, but you know, I need the work, or I need this. Okay, well, we'll figure out a way to get you the money, but why don't you go home and take care of that? 'Cause you need to take care of you first, and you're not going to be that productive here anyway. Right. And any money that has been lost from doing all of that and taking care of everybody, I promise you, has been made back 5 to 10 fold, just because everybody here stays and everybody wants to be here, and that just ends up translating into how everybody treats each other. And just hearing that story, I don't know, it just made me realize how much that's actually trickled into the company itself.
Yeah.
Well, that is the biggest thing. Is, you know, and I always say this, but I hate the word employee, because that's not who they are.
Right.
And we've talked about family, but we really came up with our community. And you know, when you're a community, you care about each other. And what happens in that community to one person, it affects the whole community. You know, it's like the old adage, you know, if you stub your toe, the whole body hurts, right? So, and it's the same thing. If somebody is hurting or someone's going through something, and we've had situations like Brandon said where you need to go home. You're not yourself today. Go home, do whatever you need to do, because like you said, hey, this happened last night and I don't know how to deal with this. We'll cover you. It's okay. Go home.
Well, and the reason why we shifted to calling it a community is just because I feel like companies and corporations have really exploited that term family to a ridiculous level.
Yeah.
Like I've even seen memes that are talking about how you can tell a toxic company by if they call it a family.
Right.
That's like how bad it's gotten.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because it starts becoming a buzzword to say and a way to attract people and all of that. But when you look at it, it's literally just words. It's just for PR or for bringing people in, and none of it's actually authentic at all. And so we just kind of started shifting towards calling ourselves a community just to kind of even get away from that, because none of it's bullshit. It's all the real deal.
Right. You made a comment about speaking to your kid at their level. I know my daughter won't listen to this, so I'll share it because she'd be pissed if she heard it. Actually, last week, so I co-parent. I was previously married and had a daughter, and it's not easy co-parenting. My parents have been together for 44 years, so I didn't experience that. And recently, my daughter, I don't know if there's been anything that has stopped me in my tracks in my entire life, but recently I don't think I was handling her appropriately. I don't think I was being as gentle as I should be with her. I don't have sisters. I have a brother. My dad has 5 brothers. I didn't grow up with, that. But she recently, I think she was upset, but said, I'd rather just live at mom's. And I mean, I almost will cry right now because I never thought I would hear that from my child. And when you talked about getting down on their level, last week, we were out at dinner and she was just kind of being sassy, and it was actually for her birthday. She turned 12, and with my parents and wife and my grandma. And I thought, let me try something different. Let me be gentle about how I approach this. And I kind of just whispered to her and said, hey, I know you try to be funny, and with me, a lot of what I do is humor and sarcasm, and she's definitely taken after that, and she's funny. I go, but your stuff is starting to get a little rude now. It's starting to get a little disrespectful, especially when you're talking to stepmom Adrian. I give her more leeway with me to give me more crap than her, and I just said, I wish you would. I know you're really sweet, and I wish we could just see that a little bit more. And what was interesting is she kind of just sit there and she's like, you're right. I have been being a little sassy. I've even been sassy to mom, and I don't really know why, but I'm sorry.
Wow.
And then later on that evening, it was like a whole different kid. And the next day when she went back to mom's, I talked to my wife, Adrian, and Adrian was like, I think it's how you approached her. I think the gentleness, the calmness, I think she really received that and respected that. And I so relate with some of the stuff that you're saying in terms as I'm trying to build some businesses, of what's important and keeping those things in perspective. And, with this podcast, I mean, there's late nights with my buddy that's doing the editing but trying to almost not force things, not let it kind of come to you and let who you really are come through. You wanted to build this thing so bad, but then there was these other things that were getting neglected, rather than, hey, you can still be loving and still be a great dad and still build a company. And I just, as you were saying that, I so relate with that. And now I see it go through your company and the stuff you guys talk about. How I first saw you guys, I was saying is, I think it was Facebook, but you guys were at a house, and I think it was you, installing, giving someone a free system, which how we met was a couple weeks ago at the best of.
Yeah.
And I think you guys gave someone another free unit. It sounded like someone that needed, like I have air conditioning, so I don't need a new system, but like it sounded like it was someone that needed it. And that's when I started tracking with you guys, because it kind of made me stop and go, who are these guys? Why are they doing this? It made me very interested, which is why I walked up and introduced myself, because I thought, I'm always curious, and I thought, why do you guys do this? Why are you giving these things away for free? Where is this coming from? I see your videos of your employees. It seems like they're actually having fun. It seems like it's genuine. And that's not easy to build that culture.
No.
Last week I was talking with, it's me and my wife's favorite pizza joint. So shout out to Yeasty Beastie in Monmouth, the owner of that. And we've been going there for like 5-6 years. They all know us there. And he made the comment, he was talking about management, his style. And he said, Trav, as much as we love you guys as customers, we love our staff more. And as long as we take care of them, they will take care of you guys. And I've worked at places where I wished it was that way. Like I wished the owners cared about us as much as they cared about the clients. And it sounds like you guys are doing that. It sounds like that's a big reason you won that award. But it's interesting hearing some of these things of like why you guys do it, the lessons you've learned of, why do we treat people that way? And so, you came on 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And it seems like he kind of brought a new element to some of that. As like, would you say he brought a new, like, talk about father son, talk about what that's like working together, and what has been some of the difficulties
Working with him.
Well, not necessarily that, but like, have you been viewed as, oh, well, he's son, so he gets everything, or it must be easy for him, or those kind of dynamics?
Yeah, so when I came 7 years ago, it was like he was saying, I was in a spot where I was just trying to refigure out, like, what the hell do I even want to do? And I didn't really know if I wanted to work for him, but it was a job offer. And so we committed to like a year. And I was doing that for a couple years, and I was obviously going through a lot of my own stuff, and going through a lot of emotional stuff, mental stuff at the time, just having gotten divorced and moving down here, refiguring everything out. But it was a few years in that, I don't know, something just hit me a little bit different. Actually, I was following Gary Vee at the time, and I heard him tell his story for probably like the 30th or 40th time, and about how his dad had the liquor store. They're doing like $3 to $4 million a year in revenue. He started doing marketing and doing operations stuff, and helped grow it to 60 million. And then his whole story, and there was just something that clicked. It was like, oh shit, I have literally ridiculously similar opportunity right in front of me. I'm not taking advantage of it. And so I went to him, told him, hey, I've done some marketing stuff in the past. I can see our social media, and I know what it should be or could be. We're not doing that at all.
And no heating company was doing social media at that time.
Not really, not here. And not doing it well.
Yeah.
The ones that were. And
we weren't doing it well.
No. So I just went to him and was like, I want to do this. I want to create a feeling for the brand, for the company. I want people not just to recognize the logo, but to feel something when they see it. We need your face to be a recognizable face, and just started kind of formulating just the roughest of ideas. And took a couple weeks actually to even convince them to let me do it. I did it for free, nights and weekends, for about a year. And it was about a year before I think you even really noticed that it the potential that it really had.
Right.
And so that was about halfway through, almost the exact halfway point, and that's when I shifted from, okay, I'm a salesman here, to this is something that I could really plant myself in and grow in, not just professionally but personally too. And one of the biggest things, one of the biggest reasons was just sort of looking around and being like, damn, if I went and started my own company, which is what I initially thought I wanted to do, and it was just kind of using the money to formulate my own plans and taking the time to do that. But if I did, like, this is kind of the company that I would want to have. I wouldn't want to be in heating. Like, that's super boring.
I was going to ask you, like, the same industry or
no? I would have
different?
never wanted to.
Okay.
Never wanted to do this. I did enough of it as a kid. Yeah, just I've never been super mechanically inclined. I'm not. It's just not my thing. Even when I was doing sales and having to learn blueprints and how things fit together, I just hated it. I enjoyed a lot of the psychology of sales and learning to communicate better and using that to overcome tons of my own insecurities and fear of rejection and all that. So in that sense, I was getting a lot out of it and enjoying that piece, but I hated the rest. And I think that was the barrier for me mentally in not seeing the opportunity, was because it wasn't the industry that I wanted to be in. You know, there's no glamour in it. It's not super interesting. And but when I shifted to that, it was like, yeah, but what is super interesting to me is the type of company we're building and the type of people that we're attracting and the way that everybody's being treated and the way we go about developing our people, and just all of that was, I started getting excited and passionate about that. What is the company? Not what does it do, but why is it here and how is it doing what it's doing? That's where I started coming alive. And I know in the beginning there were definitely some fears from other people that the boss's son is coming in and he's going to get preferential treatment. I'm sure, like, there could still be people to this day that subtly feel that way, although I highly doubt it, because really what happened is whereas most people would have thought, oh, Brandon's going to get siphoned the best leads, I got the worst leads. I was the guy who was having to sell jobs for insurance companies where the only thing I could bill was the labor. So instead of a $10,000 job getting commission on it, was a $900 job. So for all my time, I'm making $90 versus, $1,000 on a big project.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely got the short end of the stick for a long time. Had to prove myself, had to come up. Even when I decided I want to do the marketing, I want to help out with this, it was, I'll just do it for you for free. And then the second year, I got $300 a month. So that was dope. But I mean,
and $500 to
a $500 budget to work with every month. So, but I didn't see it as, it was like, once I saw the vision and what this could be and what was getting me excited, I didn't care about the money. And I was making good money still doing sales, and eventually I shifted to part-time and they upped what I was making there. Now I just do marketing and help grow the business full-time, which is super awesome. But it took doing a lot of that, I think, to kind of prove my worth. And then plus the budget just wasn't there to really pay someone to be a content creator for social media and run all of that. So I was looking at it long term. Okay, in 10 years, I will become so valuable that you won't be able to help but make me a partner. And even if you don't, like, who the hell cares? Like, we're doing something really cool and having a lot of fun. And so now, though, I can see, I remember actually it was probably about a year and a half ago, I started sensing a perception shift from, like, I'm Dan's son to, like, I'm my own man within this company. I'm my own benefit to this company, and that perception changing of me as a leader. And then it wasn't, I don't feel like I personally started accepting that and stepping into that role until the beginning of this year. A lot of it was my own shit, my own insecurities and feelings about myself. So what happened at the beginning of the year is I started having to run a lot of the sales team meetings because our general manager also acts as the sales manager. And because of the success of the company, partly, there's a lot of trips involved. right? And whether it's trainings for employees that leadership needs to be at, or some awards being presented, so you got to go to Mexico or Hawaii or whatever, have to. So a lot of trips popping up. So a lot of them were him or Craig, our general manager, going, and so someone needed to fill in both for manager meetings, sales team meetings, and stuff like that. And I'd gotten to a point where people saw me that way, and I developed the skill set to be able to do that. So I'm filling in a lot, but there was just this constant imposter syndrome. And that was super hard to overcome. And the hardest was actually not amongst the management team. That was a lot easier. It was the sales team that was the hardest for me, because I'm the youngest person in the room, or at least I was up until Derek came on. Yeah. So I was the youngest person in the room, arguably the least experienced outside of Ryan. And a couple of them had literally helped train me. One of the guys was the guy that I rode with when I first started, you know? So to be leading those meetings, I felt really, I wasn't insecure, but definitely, I don't know how I draw the distinction, but definitely more imposter syndrome. Like, it did not feel like it was my place. It was hard for me to take ownership of it, I guess, is the best way to put it. And like, then even trying to step into like, okay, am I bringing something to the table to teach these guys? Are they even going to take me seriously? Like, maybe half the room would because they're new, and half the room maybe won't. And the day that I let that go, we started kind of getting into this debate, I guess. I was presenting something, I was getting some pushback, especially from some of the senior guys. And finally it was just like, I don't care. Like, why? I was like, you could do everything that you just said, or you could make the 2-minute phone call that I just suggested, which seems easier to you. And it was just kind of like finally standing up and being like, I know that this is the right move, and it's okay if you disagree, but this is the way that makes the most sense. And something about stepping through that invisible barrier that felt so real at the time, it was just like, boom, everything started to lift off. And the next meeting, I just addressed it head on. I was like, hey guys, first things first, like, I feel super insecure sitting in this chair. Craig has some big shoes to fill, and it feels weird that it's my place to fill them sometimes. And you know, one-on-one is a lot easier, but something about sitting down in this chair, it's like I feel like I have to have these amazing ideas that I'm going to present to you, and these, you know, awesome philosophies about sales that we're going to work through, and kind of just explained everything that I just said to you about imposter syndrome and being the youngest, least experienced, all of that, and just hit it head on. And one of the guys was like, yeah, but that's probably why you're the best person to sit there. And between those two meetings, which I think were back to back, if I remember right, I then had a manager meeting that I had to lead the next week, and kind of approached it in a similar way, and just stepped into the shoes and left all the discomfort behind. And that, for me, was the day that it all changed. I think the perception was changing before that amongst everybody else, from like, oh yeah, he's the boss's son, he does some Facebook stuff and he's good at sales, to actually being approached as a leader. I think it started earlier than I felt like, but I didn't feel like I even took ownership of it fully until the beginning of this year, like January, February time. And it was really just because I was forced to. I didn't really have a choice. I was leading so many of these meetings. I couldn't keep going into them feeling this way, because that's not effective for me. And what I told the guys is, if we're not doing anything that matters, then like, why the hell are we having this meeting? I don't want to just meet for the sake of meeting. If they're not going to be productive or have any benefit to you guys, then we may as well just cancel the meetings when they're not here. So help me find a way to make it productive. And that impacted every area of my life. It was like so many areas that I didn't realize I felt imposter syndrome or insecure and stuff like that. It was so much easier to step through, because it was like I stepped through that invisible barrier once, and every time it got easier. And that has probably been the coolest change for me, just personally, not even just professionally, to kind of leave a bunch of that behind and be able to step into a role and have that confidence. And whether somebody feels like I get special treatment or not, which I almost never do, it just didn't matter. Like, that was just, I don't care. Like, you are welcome to think what you want. Like, I know what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing. And
I think that's so powerful. I think, like, in terms of people listening, watching, when you decided to just be honest and authentic, and you sit down and you go, hey, like, I don't really feel qualified to be sitting here. You know, here's the things that I'm struggling with. Here's for you, like you got to just release those things.
Yeah.
And for them, that's what's relatable. You know, like I talk about like, how do we relate? How do we get people to care about the story? Or I might not be a business owner, but like now I can kind of relate to this. That's what you did for them. You related to them, because guaranteed they're sitting there being like, I've been anxious, I've been depressed, like whatever you said that day, they're like, yeah, me too. And now he's just being honest. We all know what the dynamic is, or if you're the boss, or everyone knows what the titles are. But now, wow, we're kind of the same, you know? And then, so for them, they're like, well, that's why you should be there. Right. So like that honesty. And for you, I mean, and not just for you, for all of us, the importance of just being authentic, just
It's
being
huge.
yourself.
Right.
And the moment you did that, it was like, wow, like I feel lighter. Nothing, like I didn't die. I didn't, you know, like nothing happened.
That's exactly how it felt. Was here's this thing that I was like, whether I always consciously knew it or not, was like such a barrier for me. It was like, it was like, oh, that was literally nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing happened. I had all these like subconscious fears about what would happen or how I'd be perceived or any of that. And what actually ended up happening is I had 3 or 4 people after that meeting come up to me and be like, hey man, that was such a good meeting. Thank you so much. Or one of the guys who's been in a sales manager before for a competitor was like, hey man, you did great. Like it was awesome to see you actually finally step up and stuff like that. It was like some of them almost were like, okay, finally you're going to take ownership of this. And whereas for me, it was like, oh, I probably won't be accepted, or they'll think it's just, you know, oh, it's Brandon up there and stuff like that. And it was literally the opposite effect happened.
Exactly. So they're sitting out there thinking, when is this dude gonna take the reins here, right? And you have a completely different idea of what they're thinking.
Yeah, man.
And it's not until like, can we just have an honest conversation? And then it's like, oh, you guys wanted me to do this the whole time? I could have saved myself a lot of heartache by just doing this a long time ago.
100%.
And the imposter syndrome, like that's a real, like starting this podcast. I'm not a podcaster, right?
Right.
All I know is I care about people. I like storytelling. You know, if you were to meet people in my circle, they'd be like, man, Trav's got this way to get information out of people. People just tell him things. I've just kind of had it my whole life where I just engage with people and they say things. And so I thought, well, how do I try to create a platform where other people can listen and watch that? Because I'm not a podcaster. And so, but I was like, you know what? Because I'm a like kind of perfectionist and everything needs to be T's crossed and I's dotted. But this, I actually said, like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go in, do it. What stuff do I need to buy? Start interviewing people. And we'll just see how it goes. We'll see what it turns into. And I kind of felt that going into it, like I'm not a podcaster. But it's like, you're not until you are.
Right.
You know, like a buddy of mine just released a book, authored his first book, and it's like, now he's an author. But he wasn't until, and so just stepping into that. And what's funny is, you know, the release, once you do, it's like, oh, well, nothing changed.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of good at this, and I kind of like this, and it's kind of working. But how powerful that is to just be authentic, to just be honest, and what that opens up. And I'm sure there's a new level of respect for you. They got an insight of, because see, they're never going to know what it's like to be his son. Right. They're never going to know that stuff that you're carrying of like, man, they probably think this or think that, unless you tell them, unless you share that with them. Right. Because they just can't know.
Yep.
And then that gave them an opportunity to share some stuff back with you, which was, bro, we've been waiting for you to do this thing, lead us, you know. And so that part of just being honest and authentic, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I love that because, you know, before, I mean, we only would have like 10 or 12 people. That was the company. And I would get so nervous when I had to talk to everybody and tell them where we're going, what we're doing, stuff like that. I have back issues. I've got a bulged disc from picking up too much stuff and picking up air conditioners by myself because I was the only one to do it. So what would happen, I would get done. My back muscles would spasm so bad because I'm so nervous and so afraid to address my company that I'd have to go. I'd be done for the rest of the day because I couldn't even walk. But now what's really cool is we've got 70 people, and I don't even have half the time. I don't even have anything planned of what I'm going to say, and it's that like Brandon said, I felt like I was an imposter. I'm here. I am trying to come up with something interesting for everybody to say.
And in reality, you're like, I'm just a guy who doesn't know what he's doing either.
Exactly. Here I am. I have no clue what I'm doing, and but what we do now is I love how we open all of our meetings because it really changes the whole feel. Because you walk into a meeting and you've got 20 people sitting around a table, and they're all managers or key people, and first thing we do is, hey man, what good is happening to what's going on in your life that's good? Every single person has to think about something that's good, and it just opens up it changes the whole atmosphere. Because a lot of times, you're coming into a meeting, it's like, oh crap, what are they going to talk about now? What did I do? Oh, is the company having struggling? Is my position struggling? But it changes that atmosphere to one of positivity, and now we go down a road of, okay guys, we're struggling in these areas, how are we going to fix it? And that was the other thing that was really awesome for me to realize, was that I don't have to have the answer. And so now when I walk into a meeting and we have an issue, okay guys, here's the issue, I need your help. There's 20 of you. I don't have the answer, and I don't have to have the answer, which total freedom. Man, there's a huge amount of freedom. Even when we were 10 or 12, if we had an issue, it's like, guys, I don't know the answer. Here's what I think, but what do you guys think? And now we kind of change it up a little bit. I kind of already know what I'm thinking, but I want to put it out there to them, because you get 20 minds going or 70 or whatever. There's a whole lot that comes out that is like, oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that. That's really cool. And so just having that, being able to shed that imposter, what do you call it? Syndrome? Yeah, I like that word. Imposter syndrome. It's so freeing. And I think there's a lot of that goes on when you're trying to run a company, because you feel like you have to know. I mean,
that kind of goes back to authenticity too. Like, a lot of ways, I feel like everybody's wearing a mask or putting on different masks depending on the circumstances that they're in or the people they're talking to. And I think one of the more common ones for business owners or leaders just in any field is they do have that feeling that they have to put on the mask of the confident knowledge bearer who has the plan, and pulling that off and being authentic about it. It's great for you, but then when you're wearing that mask, whether people are seeing through it or not, now they're having this expectation of like, okay, well, you're the boss, you're the leader, at least you think you are. Instead of having this openness of, it's like you kind of have to be the environment within yourself that you want to produce in a room. So if you want an environment of vulnerability and authenticity where you can really get to the root of things, you have to do that in yourself first. If you're holding up this mask of like, well, I'm strong, I'm confident, and I've got the answers, that's just going to produce the vibe in the room. If you come in, I'm open to new ideas, I want to get down to the root of things, I want us to have honest discussions, and I want to kick it off in a positive way, all of a sudden that's reciprocated. Now that's the energy in the room. And there's just a huge difference in the meetings when you're between one and the other, for sure.
We've even had some guys that have come from other companies, and they've said, and they presented something, and they were really afraid to present it, but they said, here's what I think. And within a week, we put it in. We changed it a little bit, but we put it right into the plan. I mean, boom! This is a standard operating procedure now, and this was really good. And he came to us and said, if I'd have done that where I worked before, they'd have fired me because they have the answers. I said, dude, man, we're always looking for something. We're always looking to make it better. We're always looking at any way that we can make it better for the company, for the people that work there, for the customer. And if that happens, man, why wouldn't we? Why would we, let you go and say, well, and that open environment is what Brandon was talking about. I want to go back to Brandon's advertising and coming to me and saying, and it was kind of at that time that I was thinking, I'm old school. I was running the advertising. Advertising agencies would come to me and I'd say, no, I've seen your stuff. And really, they were bad. I wasn't great, but they were bad. Yeah. And so I really realized that I got to get out of the way, because I've got these old ways of looking at things. Didn't know Facebook. I could get on it and I had friends and stuff, but didn't really understand it. Didn't understand the whole social media marketing. Back when I did it, it was like, man, you got to have the biggest, in the yellow pages. You got to be the biggest in the yellow pages. You got to have the
that
A.
was it.
A advantage. You had to have an A so that you're at the top. And when he started talking to me about this stuff, I'm going, we've got to make a shift. We have to have, there's a new generation coming, and my brain's not there. I've got other things that I need to think about, and learning it is going to be difficult. He's already immersed in it. Brandon's already got it, and he's immersed in it. He's using it. He's doing the stuff, and it just made total sense to me, but he had to prove it. And we did. We had a $500 budget for social media, and I don't know what it is now, $20,000 a month. Literally, it's $25,000 a month now, and it was a $500 budget. And he took that $500 and he made it into something to where I said, okay, this is working. Yeah. And we had Brandon put a post out, and I was I don't remember where I was at, but I was at a conference, and our supplier at that time, I told him, man, we put this out. This is so great. And I said, do you really think that social media stuff works? And I'm just hitting my head. Are you kidding me? This is like the silver bullet. Yeah. Because because of the way we do it, not because we put out, here's our promotion. Hey, get our special picture of an air conditioner. Right. Because we're showing the heart of Advantage, and that's what he came.
Providing connection.
Yeah. Providing connection. And Brandon said, when people see our advertising, when they see that A, they need to have a feeling. They need to have a good feeling about it. And you can tell the story of the lady.
Oh, we've had several times where people actually reference that, not knowing the story. The closest to almost an exact word for word what I was trying to accomplish. I had a lady. So I actually had the benefit for 3 years. It was challenging to balance both, but it was such a big advantage. So I would do some of the marketing. We had Bree at the time who was doing a lot of the traditional advertising. But I was doing the social media, so I had kind of the bird's eye view from there. But then I would go out in the field and I have to sell those leads too. So I was getting constant feedback on each side. How are people perceiving us? How are they interacting with our content? And then how is that impacting my ability to get them to connect with me enough to buy something from me? And I wasn't the only salesperson, but I was definitely the one who was the most interested in how did you hear about us? What did you think of it? What was the video? Because I wanted to know so bad. And one of the last home leads that I took last year, the lady literally said, I just don't know what. I really couldn't tell you what it is. It's just when I think of you guys, I just have a really happy feeling. Literally like that.
And that's exactly what he said.
I'm pretty sure I called you right after. I was like, I fucking did it!
It's working. That's pretty much exactly what he said. I want people to have a happy feeling when they see any advertising that we do. I want them to have a really good, happy feeling.
Yeah. As I'm sitting here thinking, it must be for you coming in and Dad's already built it, but now you're bringing a new facet with all this. And I don't know if you guys would be experiencing this much growth had he not been doing that for years now. Because social media, it's unlike anything else. Yeah. Because you can literally touch the world. Yeah. It's unlimited. And so for you to bring this new facet, like maybe it never gets to where it is now without that, which is, for someone that comes in being like, well, I always wanted to build my own company.
Right.
part of it you kind of did. I mean, you kind of brought something that it probably wouldn't be this without what you brought. And another thing that I'm thinking is like your guys' culture. Like I see you guys like starting a consulting company, a whole separate consulting company where
We just did.
so because you made the comment like, well, I never, and I thought the same thing. Like, doing insurance, we all know what people think about insurance and whatnot. But you made the comment like, well, I don't like, it's not sexy doing heating or fun or whatever. But what you get out of it is the staff and the clients and building that culture and whatnot. And that you can take to any business.
100%.
It doesn't matter what widgets you're making or whatnot. And the fact that you guys are a heating company and now look at the culture. Yeah. I was just thinking like you guys could take that to literally rinse and repeat to any type of business.
Sure.
Yeah. It doesn't matter that we're heating. Here's what we do to have this kind of culture. That applies to any business.
Yeah, it really does.
What's funny is that we get back and forth on social media. Sometimes we'll get heating guys talking back and forth and talking to Brandon. One of them, don't know if it was a heating company, but it appeared he worked for a heating company. I think Brandon did some investigation. And he said, nobody cares about your morals. You're a heating company. It's like, dude, everybody cares because if we don't have the morals to take care of our customer and to do the right thing, man, you're what are you doing?
I posted about that story on our social media and had tons of comments of people being like, that's literally why I choose you guys. That's why I wanted to work with you guys. And Michelle made a pretty cool TikTok out of that too.
Yeah. How can you miss the most important thing?
Right.
I mean, but
people do all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
They miss it all the time. Yeah. I mean, that
guy probably never worked in this kind of environment.
100%.
Right.
Man.
So all he has is his perspective and the experiences that he's been through. And he hasn't seen that. He hasn't experienced that. Right. Like, well, they just care about this. No, these things that we're talking about, it doesn't matter what business you do. They apply.
Yeah.
And I mean, what really separates good from great? And it's these kind of things, because you would still make money and be successful not implementing some of the stuff you guys are doing. You would still be owning the business and whatnot, but not at the level that it's going, not winning North American awards, not affecting, your staff's lives.
Right.
One day I'd love to maybe interview some of your staff, and see what they say. But it's that person, like when I listen to that, I just think like, man, unfortunately that person has never been able to be in that environment. So they don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's why you have to approach so much with just extreme amounts of empathy and then also just see it as raw data, right? Like someone comments that's just an indicator, a data point of how a person might feel seeing that. It's not an attack on us personally. I like if I see negative comments or reviews, the first thing I do, I'm like, thank you so much for bringing that data to me, because I would never have a way to know that. And then let's dive in deeper and figure it out, because if you're doing this on social media, especially when you are really putting yourself out there, number one, you could easily take it personally because you're putting you out there. And number two, you're bound to get all the negative feedback because you put something out there, even if it's like something ridiculously positive. You're going to have people that go out and comment negatively about it because they feel negatively about it. But you just have to see it as like, well, number one, maybe they're just having a bad day. Number two, maybe they've heard something like this before and it turned out to be totally untrue and someone screwed them over, or whatever the case may be. But if you can just see it as it's just data about how people feel about certain things, like then it's just okay. And when we see stuff like that, you just have to have empathy for the person themselves.
I mean, really what it is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like you're trying to educate and build something. And now all that is an opportunity for you to go, hey, appreciate that feedback. Yeah. Maybe here, like take a different look to this. Here's why we're doing this. I just see an opportunity there for you guys.
We talk about that. Yeah. I tell someone makes a mistake, and our install manager, service manager, whoever, they're upset about it. I said, no, wait a minute. This is a learning opportunity, not just for them, but for you. How are you going to handle it? Learning opportunity for the whole team, because I guarantee you that not everybody knows this. So now we can actually take this mistake and, yeah, it was bad. Yep, it's going to cost me money. Yep, I'm writing the check. However, let's use this as a learning opportunity. Now, if you do it 3 or 4 times, now we got an issue because we've already went through this. But most of the time, you know, it happened once and that's it. We learned, we got it. Okay, let's move on. One thing that I want to talk about, you know, without Brandon, yeah, we wouldn't have launched and exploded and done that. But it also takes a team behind Brandon. It takes the person on the phone. I mean, they're Brandon and his team. Brandon has a whole team.
We've got 4 content creators now that I work with in-house.
So he's got that team that's getting people to call in. But if we don't act appropriately on the phone, or we don't treat that customer correctly just on the very beginning, the first 5 seconds, we don't get that. We won't have a customer, and then that has to be reciprocated out to the service tech, who then it goes to the sales staff, and then from there it goes to the install craftsman. You know, and each part of the team is so important that if we fumble anywhere and we drop the ball anywhere, we're just, you know, Brandon can't tell everybody how great we are, and then the sales team comes out and says, yeah, we're great, and then we do a horrible install.
Well, yeah, like I've said this before,
it just doesn't work.
All I can do is show what's happening. What's happening has to be something that is gonna be impactful for people in a good way. All I'm doing is just exposing what's there.
And what's really cool, Brandon came up with this idea. He said, we need to video all of our meetings, all of them, and we do, and we tell people, we give them the blueprint of what we're doing. I mean, if they were to watch all of our videos, any HVAC company could just start watching all of our videos and say, okay, pick this out. Yeah, oh yeah, this is what they do.
And customers are now seeing internal meetings on the management level, the sales level. I mean, at any level of the company, you can jump in.
And that's the beauty of it. We're just putting out there who we really are. And those are real live meetings and those are things that we're really talking about.
Yeah, that, working with a lot of business owners on the insurance side and seeing a lot of different types of businesses, I think it's easy for business owners that have been doing whatever they're doing, whether they're a farmer or whatever, contractor, they kind of just like they've always done it, so they don't find it like that. Like you said, like, well, it's just heating. I've always done it. But the thing is like other people haven't. And so as much as you might think it's, this is kind of just second nature, boring to you guys, showing people that, here's a meeting or here's how we do that, it's actually more interesting than I think a lot of people that do what they do, like, than they think. Like, hey, like, how does cheese get made? Where does it come from? Dairy farmers would be like, my family's been doing this for, 100 years. Who cares? Well, no, a lot of people are like, oh, so it doesn't just like go right there to, no, there's a process to all that kind of stuff. Right. So showing people your guys' process is, I always tell business owners, like, whatever you do, it's more interesting than you think. You just are used to doing it, but it is more interesting to the public because they don't know. Yes, I know what air is and heat is, but the functionality behind that, I don't. I was watching, I'm pretty sure it was one of your guys' videos, and because we bought a new house, and we've had to use the air conditioning for the first time, and it would only get down to like 72 to 74 degrees, the air conditioning, and my parents live with us. And my dad was, he was like, hey, I think there's something wrong with the AC because we have it set to 68 and it won't get there or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, because I recently saw a video that these machines are manufactured this way to when it's really hot outside to be around this temperature and not go lower. So literally you putting out that content Where like my dad's like, I think it's broken. Maybe we need to call someone. And I was like, no, I think these are how they're manufactured. It's not going to get down to 68 when it's 100 degrees outside.
Exactly.
Right.
And so like that kind of stuff where you know that, you guys know that because that's what you do. I mean, here I'm having this conversation a couple weeks ago. Like, no, it's not broken.
Yeah, it's not broken. It's,
You know, like, and think about like what you saved me or him. Like,
Exactly.
he would have just picked up the
Yeah.
phone, called someone. Hey, service tech comes out. Here's a chart. Like, I don't really know exactly how that works, but you know, that piece of information, like, oh no, it is fine. Rather than
right.
us freaking out, like, oh, is there something wrong? We just bought the house, and so you know, it's, you know, I always try to tell business owners, hey, this stuff is more interesting than you think, and helpful than you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies could literally get started just by finding ways to creatively document the things that they're doing, and you could literally start there and start building an audience just from that.
Yeah.
well, and the things that we take for granted that we have common knowledge, we have to remember, just because I've been doing it for 40 years, nobody, other people don't have that.
Yeah.
They don't have that knowledge. I mean, to me, it's just like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But most people, and I would not know their industry. I would not know insurance. It's like things that you have that are common knowledge to me. It's like, I have no clue.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a buddy on a couple weeks ago, and he has he does screen printing and embroidery, you know, and it's same thing. Like, well, I just do this, and it's like, well, it, you know, it's not just that though, because honestly, I don't know exactly how to screen print a garment. You know, like I kind of have the idea where you pull it down, but like I went to a shop and saw his little carousel thing and how they put it on and press it and whatnot, and I was like, start making videos of this stuff. Start
Yeah.
showing that.
Yeah.
Because you do it every day, and he had like an order for like 700 shirts, you know.
wow.
So, but I'm like, start showing that. Show the embroidery machine and how you upload the logo, and then, you know, do it, because people will be interested in that. We all know what a hoodie is with the logo and whatnot, but we don't really know the process and
Right.
how that's done.
Not at all.
And I mean, you know, most companies, like, it's just interesting how they're so used to it. But I mean, all the content that you can create by just showing these different things, and definitely draws people in, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
even educating.
Yeah.
So that they have a basic knowledge. So if something goes wrong, just like you, wait a minute, it's working the way it's supposed to, you know, and that's what we want. You know, we don't want that phone call of, hey, you didn't switch the lever, you know, you didn't
Right.
switch it into air conditioning. It's still in the heating mode. Got it all the time. I actually went out to a house and I walked all the way around the house, and they did not have an air conditioner. They thought they had one. It's like, I am so sorry to tell you that
We figured out the problem.
You don't have one. Can I help? I can help you with that.
Yeah.
And so
I think it's happened more than once.
it's happened more than once. But a lot of times, if you don't have the automatic changeover, most thermostats have that now, to where it just automatically kicks from heating to air conditioning. But there's still a lot of them out there that have to be manually moved over to the air conditioning. And if we can put that out there, that saves. I mean, how do you charge someone for going and flipping a switch? It's
Right.
like,
Right.
well, we could do this, and then I can do a check on your air conditioner, and we'll get you a tune-up, and we'll get that all taken care of.
Right.
But I would much rather have that out there to where, you know, the homeowner can say, oh, hey, let's try this first.
Yeah.
You know, let's make sure that it's. And if you were to call in and say, my air conditioner, this first time that we fired it up, we would, do you have it in the air conditioning mode? We want
Right.
to make sure that first.
Right. Yeah. Consulting. You said, hey, do you want to talk about that or what that?
Sure. So right now it's on my end, just doing strategy sessions and stuff like that for social media. So I do that under the name Summers Digital, and we've got some bigger plans a little ways down the road for it that I'm really excited about. I don't know how much of that you actually want to share, so I'll just for now stick with what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So what's become really, really clear to me over the last 4 years, being immersed in it, creating content, finding ways to make it interesting. And I always joke that, like, if I could make HVAC interesting, there's probably no industry that I won't be able to help in. But what I think where I think a lot of local business owners struggle with social media and content creation is that either they don't have much of a working knowledge of it, or they're hiring a company that is a small agency that has a ton of clients, and so they kind of just have to do a bunch of cookie cutter stuff. And because the business owner doesn't have much working knowledge of how to effectively create content or implement social media strategies, they're relying on that small agency to cover it all, but they don't know how to measure its effectiveness. And I've had a lot of people say, yeah, we've tried Facebook, or we're trying Facebook, or we're trying Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. I just don't know if it's working. And if you don't know if it's working, I promise you it's not working.
Right.
It was,
you will know.
You will definitely know. I mean, it went from something that was like, oh yeah, Brandon's doing Facebook, to within 2 to 3 years, almost everybody that I talk to says they follow us on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. And so social media actually went from being an afterthought to being one of the number one ways that we were connecting with customers and bringing in leads. So you definitely will know. It's just that too many people are trying to utilize social media, like you said earlier, for all this bombardment of advertisement. I'm like, how quickly do we tune all that out? Like, if you're in a news feed, no matter what platform it is, and you get to the ad, you're like throw your thumb up as fast as you can to get past it.
Right.
You're tuning it out as much as you can. So if you're trying to advertise on social media, there are plenty of companies that are good at making that work. But if your goal is like brand building, exposure, and connecting with people, you're literally on a platform designed to connect with people.
And
do
actually having
something
an
that will
impact.
connect.
Yeah.
Right. Something
Having
they
an
want to
impact.
see.
Yeah.
Like the best advice that I heard Gary Vee say when someone was like, yeah, you want us to post multiple times a day. Like, people are just going to get upset. They're not going to want to see that. And he's like, well, yeah, but you want to be the television show, not the commercial.
Right.
And so how do you create that where it's something people want to engage with, they want to see, and make it interesting? And so what I feel like I do best, and we'll be partnered on it down the road, and we've got some bigger plans for it, but right now is I meet with companies and I go, okay, I'm not the guy that you want to hire and pay all this, pay top dollar to click the buttons for you. Hire somebody else to click the buttons, or you learn how to click the buttons. But if you don't understand the strategy behind what you're doing on social media and how you're going to make something interesting, how you're going to make something that resonates and connects with people on a deep level, how you're going to create something that evokes a feeling, etc., that's what you need me for.
So tell your story. I mean, you've got a great analogy from how radio and television. You tell that.
A lot of that I've stolen from other people.
Right, but
so it's
I mean,
not
it's perfect.
originally mine. But if you're looking at, like, anytime a new platform for advertising comes out, people have to figure out the right strategy. So you could understand that, okay, well, if I'm advertising on television, I'm going to put a video, of course. But if you look at old radio ads, they if someone was just talking on the radio, that would feel appropriate for radio. If you film somebody and they're just reading the same script and you put that on television in the middle of a television show, it's going to be horribly ineffective. So you start having to innovate and figure out, how do we create a video that's going to make sense on television?
Try that at the very beginning when television came out.
I've heard Gary Vee talk about that.
They tried that. They tried to do it just like they did on radio.
And now what you have is people who are essentially using what looks like a modified postcard or a magazine ad or something like that, and that's what they're using as a Facebook post to sell. Like a really simple example of the difference between an ad that I might create if it's not content, it's just I'm looking for a direct response. I've had far better response having one of our people hold up a whiteboard that I literally just wrote by hand, AC starting at $59 a month, full system starting at $89 a month, holding the whiteboard up, smiling, and that's the ad, versus someone creating this like graphic with flowers and a furnace and all this other bullshit. Because
it's so funny, Brandon. He says, "Okay, Dad, come out here, hold this." Okay, I have no clue what it says. It could have said, "This guy's an idiot." I have no idea what it says. Now smile. Okay. I don't even remember what it said, but it was really cool. It had a cool saying, but it that kind of advertising on Facebook works. Like Brandon said, you put out, "Hey, AC starting at $69." That works sometimes, but I literally, before Brandon, I'm on Facebook and I'm flipping through and ad, and I go, "Wait a minute. That was my ad." And I went back and I said,
Yeah.
this has to change. And so I went to Brianna at the time and I said, I don't care what we do. Find a picture of a cute dog, a cat. I don't care. And she did. To her, she went out and she found a dog laying in ice, which that was great. But it still didn't. I mean, that was good for then. This was what, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was.
Longer, maybe.
And longer than that. But I literally was flipping through there, and then when Brandon came to me with the idea, I said, but he proved himself over and over and over again how to change. And if we don't adapt and change and grow, what's that saying that we have that's on the poster?
I forget exactly how it's worded, but basically, like, the worst thing you can say is this is the way we've always done it.
Right. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
And the definition of insanity, to do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. We have to continually grow and adapt and change. And what's really cool is we talk about that in our meetings, and there are some people that, change is like, wow, that's they're scratching their fingers on a chalkboard. This is really bad. But I think everybody now understands, since we've talked about it, if we're not adapting and changing and growing, we're actually going backwards. I mean, if we're staying stagnant, I mean, think of water that's stagnant. I mean, at first it's okay, but then after a while, you don't want to touch it. You don't want to get into it, you know. But if you're always changing, the water's coming in and going out and constantly changing.
Yep.
Think there's life there instead of death.
Yeah.
And that's really, really what we really talk about that a lot in our management meetings.
Yeah.
Well, so like right now we're doing a ton of TikTok. And I know that when we got slow in April, early May, not only did we have a crazy wet, cold spring, but that was also in comparison to a couple years of ridiculously hot, dry springs.
Yep.
And so we went from like, for a few years, having AC demand by April to having no demand period till the end of May. And it was right at the time that I was putting a lot of emphasis on TikTok. And so I know that I had some people, especially some of the sales guys who are dying for leads, being like, okay, like Brandon's probably lost it. There's no one on TikTok that's going to buy from us and all of that. And props to Michelle. She's been an amazing content creator for that platform. But it's like you have to be, we're already, like in my mind, I was like, you guys think that I'm way too early. I'm already too late. Like we're already too late to build our TikTok channel. We should have done this a year or two ago. But if you're not constantly looking and adapting and looking for new strategies, they're like, okay, what, you're dancing around in this green suit, or you're doing this, you're doing that. Like, how are people going to think of heating for that? And it's like, well, they may not. But TikTok is now the way to exemplify the personality trait of advantage heating that's fun and silly and that way. And that just goes back to number one, the adaptability, the constant change and innovation, but then the strategy side too. Like, if you're really trying to branch into social media content, you need to be looking at each platform as its own facet of a personality. Like I'm not gonna do everything the exact same on LinkedIn as I do Facebook, and I'm not gonna do the same thing on Instagram Reels as I would TikTok, even though they could seem and feel very similar. The strategy has to be very different, and so you've always got to be learning, innovating, changing, trying, and a lot of this stuff is like we just now I feel like are figuring out a strategy for Instagram that I think is gonna work after like 2.5 years of trial and error for HVAC. But
well, when I was doing the advertising, I would go to my advertisers and they'd be trying to sell me on advertising, and I'd say, look, man, I got 3 seconds. And they said, 3 seconds for what? I have 3 seconds to grab that person's attention. That was 15 years ago. We have a nanosecond.
For real.
We don't even have a second to grab someone's attention. If it's not interesting and if it's not flashy and it's not going to catch their attention, they're just moving on. Because there's so much information overload coming at everybody all the time that we have a nanosecond. And they thought I was nuts when I told them I got 3 seconds to grab their attention back then. They thought, oh no, you got, and they're showing me goofy things, pictures of a door, open the door to new opportunities. Like, well, what is that about? I mean, goofy stuff. So, I mean, and that's what's really cool, having Brandon being that next generation, being able to look at it and say, yeah, this is working. Yeah, this is what we have to do, and understanding. And he's heard me say it over and over and over again. We got 3 seconds. Yeah. Well, but now it's insane.
Yeah.
You know what's really cool about all that though is it like yeah, it's helped build the brand, but it has definitely impacted and helped develop the culture within the company.
Oh yeah.
Because then everybody's hearing your thoughts on
Right.
this or
Yeah.
that. Everybody's seeing the fun, random stuff that Michelle went around and did with people for TikTok, and they're laughing at their coworkers, or everybody's seeing,
Yeah.
you know, the award that we all got, and or maybe some hearing the podcast and hearing, you know, how appreciative you are of the people and what they're doing, and how, you know, they get to sit in and hear, oh, well, when someone's praising Dan, he's not just taking all the credit, he's immediately talking about us. Like, that's kind of cool. And I think that there's a huge element to that where once you have like the whole team of people like engaging on social media and seeing the inner workings of the company more and what's being said on the outside and how are things being created, I think that it just creates a tightness and a closeness with everybody. And I've noticed that the more we've leaned into creating content for social media platforms and stuff like that, the more engaged and involved everybody wants to be. And now it's almost like every day I have someone being like, hey, you know what would make a funny TikTok? Or hey, you know what would make a great video for this? Or we should do a post like that. And now you have all these people like thinking of random creative ideas for things. Somebody who typically files our permits and structures jobs is coming up with an idea, or our install manager is, or, you know, and that, I mean, that alone would be worth doing it all just for helping develop that, you know.
And the crazy thing is, Brandon we'd set up to do a video, and it'd be like 20 takes and hours of me just, okay, deer in the headlights. Oh, crap. But now, you know, I'll send him to just, what was it, yesterday, I think? I sat in a parking lot waiting for some people, and I just sent him a couple videos, and I said, here, pick which one you want to use, or chop it up and do whatever. And it was too long, and I knew it was too long because I rambled on.
Yeah.
But that's the cool thing. I rambled on. Before it was like, man, I got to get a whole minute.
Right.
You know, and the fear coming over me, people are going to be watching this, and I'm
Right.
going to say something stupid. And,
Right.
But the more that you do that, and the more that we're out there, I mean, the whole world is kind of like reality TV all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
It
just
is.
throwing that reality out there, and people are tired of that polished
Yep.
crap.
Yep.
I mean, really,
Yep.
you think about it, and, oh yeah, you know, I'm a great person. All you have to do is what I did, and this is wonderful. And nobody hears about what you like to talk about, which is, yeah, I had to sell my gun that meant the world to me so that I can make payroll. I had to sell my dream car to make payroll.
I get uncomfortable and scared and stutter in front of the camera over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
You do?
and you do.
I
mean,
do.
just
I
anybody.
do.
I
I do all the
would-
time.
I
I don't
would
think he
too.
does, but I
Right.
do.
Honestly, I would too if it was scripted. I'd like it if I had to do a certain thing, I would struggle so much with that rather than, you know, it goes back to the honesty, the authenticity, because that's the part when you're not feeling like an imposter. You're just being
Right.
you. So you're not sitting there, how should I say this? How should I stand? What should my face look
Yep.
like? This is just me. And the reality is we all like are wanting that. We
Yeah.
all are wanting truth and honest and authentic. And, you know, that's what draws people in. And you guys putting videos of the staff, you know, whether there's probably a few people that don't actually like to be
Yeah,
like,
there are.
There are. Yeah.
but most people, whether they say it or not, like they would love to be in a video. They would love to have their name shouted out, you know, like it makes them feel like they're a part of something. So you guys like doing that, whether they say it or not, most people are like, yeah, you're not just the two faces of the company. Like
Right.
we all work here too, and we all help make this thing go too.
Yeah.
And that, like, I mean, what you guys are doing, and I could see like if all it was building camaraderie within your team, that would be worth it.
Yeah.
You know, let alone all the other stuff that comes.
It took Brandon a long time to finally get that out of my head that I don't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be perfect. And other people saying, no, the reason that this is effective is because you do those stupid pauses in the middle of your sentence while you're thinking about something. Because I say things and I listen to myself and I think, geez, I sound like Ross from Friends. What in the world is that?
You know,
You know?
people, even children, they know if it's not authentic,
Yeah.
right? They know.
Right.
You can't in this world, day and age, and everything's filmed and everyone's got a camera in it. They know. You know if I'm being authentic. You know if I came up and introduced myself and said, here's what I'm trying to do. Is this guy trying to sell me insurance? Or is this really what he's doing? Right? Like the first, like my buddy Mike, he's the first one, the first episode. And I've known him for 20 years. And he's sitting right there. And this wasn't aired. This was edited out. But he's sitting there and he's looking around and he's like, what's the angle here, Trav? Like, what do you... And so I'm trying to explain to him what I'm trying to make this into and how I'm making it about everyone else. And he's just like, but what, like, and I go, well, and I got to quote your insurance before I release your episode, and he starts laughing. And I was like, Mike, there's no angle, right? That will be the beauty eventually, is when it's like, and like what I really want to do is have a huge platform where you guys come on and then you guys get new phone calls and you get new sales, and literally this thing puts money in your guys' pocket because you came on and had a bunch of eyeballs you didn't have before, that now you guys are making money, and eventually I get paid ads with YouTube and I'm making money that way, and everyone's winning, and there's no angle. And I told Mike, I said, yeah, it'll take a while, but eventually, when all you people are out there and they're like, hey, Trav's a good dude. No, he's not going to sell you insurance. He really enjoys this. He's passionate about it. That's all it is. It's just honest. It's authentic. People will know.
Yeah.
This won't work. People will know. Hey, let me quote your insurance. This is so much bigger than that. This is so much bigger than that. Trying to get people's stories out, because insurance, for the most part, isn't changing anyone's lives. HVAC, for the most part, isn't changing anyone's life, right? But the story and how how you treat your staff and all that kind of, that will. Right. And you lit up in the beginning of this, when you started talking about that piece to it. That was what lit you up. And whenever I talk to people, I always try to see what is that thing? Because for me now, when people talk to me and they'll be like yesterday, my wife, teacher, and she's doing a summer job where she's kind of like the principal, the site lead. And she said, yeah, someone like the office person was like, what does your husband do? And she's like, I'm trying to figure out what to tell them, what you do, because you do a couple different things. But when I talk about what I do, when I talk about the podcast like that, people are like, oh, okay, so that's what you really care about. You do some insurance and you help your dad with the construction business, but this is what, it's just, it's interesting. It's cool to see that, what lights you guys up. And that's why I was thinking, man, you guys are creating this culture with 70 people. You need to teach other people how to do this. You need to better other companies. Even if it was competitors of yours, seriously, I will have other insurance agents in here, and I will let them talk about their journey and whatnot, because honestly, there's enough for everyone out there. And nothing wrong with some competition.
Look, could you imagine the difference or impact it could make within a city if the vast majority of companies all cared about that same thing? It was just about people serving people, helping them become better versions of themselves. Even if an owner was doing it for purely selfish reasons, because the practicality of creating that kind of environment and what it can do for a business, who cares? What it would do in a marketplace to change that? What would it be like if every company that you had to call, or every business that you had to walk into, each clerk behind the counter, every consultant, whatever it is, treated you that way? Your life would be positively impacted all the time. How many transactions do we make all the time? Business is what makes the world go around, right? Money is what moves the engine forward. But what if the motivation behind that money, or just the way that it felt, was different? I did a whole thing about how does an HVAC company change the world, and it was about that. It was we impact, we rise to the top, we get all these accolades, we get on the world stage, we get all this exposure, and then we point to all these soft skills and all these traits and who we are and all that as what was the biggest pieces to our ultimate success, so that other companies can look at that and be like, oh shit, so I can do that and still have a chance at profitability. I can do that and it still makes practical sense for my company. These guys were able to do that, and look how much more fun it looks like they're having. If that just starts changing even a few companies, pretty soon someone else has a better experience, somebody that takes off for somebody else. And I think part of what's causing that to happen, because you can kind of feel a movement of that within different industries right now, and you get guys like Gary Vee and Tom Bilyeu and Simon Sinek, and I could keep going and going, but people who actually are trying to bring an element of empathy and kindness and compassion into the business space. All that exposure from the internet, I think, is helping breed authenticity and create real connection with people. And that's, I mean, you're right. I mean, that is what ultimately gets me passionate, because I think it's just it's a way more fun world to think about living in.
Well, and if you think about, we're in 60 homes a day. You know, it's literally, we're in 60 homes a day. How can we impact 60 people
And their families.
every day,
and then
and their families? And if we can do that positively and create a positive impact, what does that do for their day?
Right.
Maybe it does it for a week. Maybe it does it, just like, you know, the story I told where the lady's husband just passed away. I mean, that's horrible, you know. But there was an impact made there, and that's where I get excited. I get excited of, oh man, we're in 60 homes every day.
Yeah, you think about that, right? Like, you go, oh, I'm just HVAC guy. You're in people's houses.
Every day. Yeah.
Their houses.
Yeah.
Right? Like that.
Yeah, that's
like,
their home.
What is more intimate than
Exactly.
someone's home?
And they invite us in,
Right.
to do the work. And so if we can, I mean, part of one of our whole vision statement, part of it says changing atmospheres. Okay, yeah, we do. I mean, it's a kind of a play on words. We do. We change the atmosphere. We go from, you're too hot, we're going to make you cool. You're too cold, we're going to make you warm. But really, the atmosphere that I'm talking about is really changing the life, and that's the passion behind that statement, changing atmospheres.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, man. This is dope.
Yeah.